Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of GDDV 501 Lighting and Rendering. My name is Kasanas. Well, guys, we're moving along pretty darn well here. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of continuity. So far, we've done pretty good. We've talked about the course, we did introduction to cinematography, real world camera, shot composition, framing, and now we're on to week 5, which is the moving camera. Today, particularly, as I've mentioned, we're going to discuss the idea of continuity. Okay, let's get started. So continuity, what exactly is continuity? Continuity is ensuring that the entirety of your section of your film or your game, so it doesn't have to be the entirety of the film, but whatever little portion, whatever scenes we're talking about, that the visuals appear to be one single continuous event. That's the entirety of our goal, that everything appears to be a one continuous event within that particular section of viewing. If we're talking about one scene in one location, for example, not the entirety of your film. There are 5 types of continuity errors that can occur, and that's really what we're going to look at today is continuity errors. We're not going to take a look at continuity editing. Well, I guess that's in here too, but we're going to really look at the continuity errors that can occur within your game or within your film. The 5 are failure to match information, failure to match action, failure to match look, failure to match movement, and failure to match convention. We are going to discuss the idea of continuity editing in another video entirely. All right, so those are the 5 that we're going to discuss. Those are the 5 continuity errors that we're going to discuss today. The first one is continuity of information. So the information error, the continuity information error is caused typically by multiple takes of a particular scene or a particular shot. And what happens oftentimes is some small changes creep into the shot without anyone really being aware. You know, the actor does their best to sit in the same pose or to hold the same pose across multiple shots, but obviously it might be slightly different. So as we're trying to edit these things together, there could be slight changes that occur in the edits. And when we do this, we might end up with what's called a jump cut. Jump cut. And a jump cut is basically a sudden change where things are almost the same, but not quite. So there's a lot of different examples here of what could cause a continuity information error. The actor sitting differently, or the actor posing differently, the actor wearing different clothing of some kind, or some set item moved or missing altogether. You know, in one shot, there's a bird sitting in the background, and then the bird flies away, and then what do you do, right? They film this thing and now the bird's not there anymore. So they'll do their best to either edit it in post, remove the bird, or they will just ignore it and hope that no one notices. And these are in every single film. And what continuity error of information does is it causes your viewer to look to see what's different. And when they notice this, it causes them to stop watching your film and instead watch the production of the film itself. They start to wonder what happened. It completely disturbs their immersive levels, and obviously that's not our goal. Our goal is to make sure that they remain immersed within whatever entertainment we're giving them. They might question whether or not something's happened. Is this a different day? Is it a dream sequence? You know, if the lighting's changed in some way, is it, you know, has time passed? They don't really understand. They don't really understand what's happening. And as they're questioning the differences in the 2 shots, then again, like I said, they've lost their immersive levels within what they were viewing, and instead they are questioning the production and looking at the production of the entertainment. Having a master shot where the entire thing was shot from one direction throughout the entirety, just let it roll for the entire time, that can help out. That can help out somewhat. Again, an actor posing differently, or something being removed, or maybe an extra glass being put on a kitchen table. All these things can creep into your film. So just the other day, I was watching Netflix, and I was watching a Vikings, a comedic Viking show. I forget the name of it. It's not the actual show Vikings, which, by the way, on the History Channel, Vikings, amazing show. Anyway, I'm such a dad, huh? Anyway, this Viking show that I was watching is a comedic version of it. But in this one scene, all the Vikings were moving through the forest, and they were going on a raid. And the chieftain had war paint on his face in one shot, and the next shot the war paint wasn't there anymore. A specific circle that he had on his forehead was gone, and then the next shot it was back again. And obviously I could see that this was shot on multiple days because they wouldn't have wiped his makeup off and put it back on. They didn't do his makeup appropriately the next time, and then they cut everything together to make up the actual sequence of shots they wanted, but all the makeup was different in every shot. And it really bothered me. I noticed it right away. So this type of thing can really have an effect on your viewer. On their immersion level, absolutely destroy their immersion level, right? I sat there questioning the makeup for the entirety of the rest of that scene. So The question might be now, can we experience the same thing in video games? Can this occur? So the answer is yes, it can occur in video games. Lots of times when we're playing games and we move from actual gameplay into a cutscene, suddenly the weapons that you utilized throughout the entire game up until now, you ran through the entire game holding the shotgun, and then you go to the cutscene and they've got this pre-rendered cutscene that shows the character that you played holding the assault rifle. Right, and you're suddenly, again, you'll notice this, right? You played the entire game with a shotgun, and there is the assault rifle in your hand, right? So a lot of these things can creep into video games as well. A lot of these things can as well. Anytime we've got these cutscenes into pre-rendered scenes, we're going to have this problem. Now, a lot of times we do utilize in-game in-engine animations now. So we create everything with an engine. So as long as we aren't redefining the character, as long as we're not rebuilding the character and rendering everything out, we're utilizing the character as they were in gameplay, then these things won't jump into play, right? We won't actually have these errors. But they absolutely can. They absolutely can. Okay, so the next error I want to talk about is continuity of action. And basically, if the action of the actor is not maintained across a cut, this can cause a jump to occur. And we're going to talk about this a lot more when we talk about the idea of continuity editing later on. So it's like match on action or cut on action is what we're talking about here. So if an actor begins an action within one scene within the sequence of shot, as they cut to the next scene within that sequence, they want to continue that action. It has to seem smooth. It has to seem fluid. It has to seem like it's all the same motion. If it doesn't, again, this can cause a jump cut of some kind. Or it can cause a jump cut, not of some kind. It can cause a jump cut. Jump cut, jump cut. All right, so if that action's not maintained, it'll cause a jump cut. And again, that same problem. Again, there's this continuity error as far as action's concerned, and it stops our player and makes them wonder what exactly has occurred here. If you're able to cut an action well, then the cut itself is usually invisible, right? It hides the cut completely. Your player or your viewer won't even know that you've actually cut to a different camera, that you're at a different location. Instead, that action ties everything together, and that's what's really important. But if that action isn't fluid, then again, that's entirely gone. You've lost that continuity, and the player or the viewer is going to be noticing the production. Again, now this can occur in video games in exactly the same way. This often happens. Let's say you are in a game and you are fighting your way. Again, we're doing some kind of first-person shooter, and we're fighting our way, and we're hiding behind cover, and we're shooting, and we shoot the last bad guy. And then we go to a cutscene, and suddenly our character comes running in from off-screen from some random direction, right? We ended our scene with our character aiming down his rifle and shooting the last bad guy, and in the very next cut, we are suddenly now running into to meet up all of our friends to discuss, oh, we got all the bad guys. So again, this is a continuity of action, right? If it was done properly within a game, we would go from that zoomed in position and have the camera transition into the run afterwards, right, where we'd actually see all of that occur in the scene. All right, so that's continuity of action. So the last type of continuity we're going to discuss really has to do with screen direction, maintaining direction. And we're going to discuss 3 different types of continuity errors that can occur, but they all involve the idea of screen space or screen direction. So look, movement, and convention are what we're going to discuss here. When we start talking about the idea of screen direction, it's really, really important that regardless of whether or not we're talking about the direction a character is facing or the direction objects within your scene are facing, whatever it is, that they maintain that same facing throughout your entirety of your scene. If they don't, then your viewer is going to question whether or not they have, the people have switched directions or whether or not the actors have moved around, something like that. Okay, so and again, this goes back to the idea of the 180-degree rule that we discussed in an earlier video. We can prevent a lot of this from happening by maintaining that 180-degree rule. So for example, if in your first shot, your character is walking from left to right, so from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side of the screen, if in the next shot they are walking from the right-hand side of the screen to the left-hand side of the screen, it'll appear as if they've changed directions. And your viewer then is going to start to wonder whether or not they've changed directions. Have they already gotten to where they're going? Are they turned around? What's happened here? All right, so again, this goes back to the 180-degree rule. If your actor is walking in the same direction, as long as you've maintained your 180-degree rule, then you won't have this flipping of direction. However, your actors, through continuity error as far as position is concerned, or as far as information is concerned. If your actor is suddenly in a different position, walking a different way, well, that can also cause this continuity of direction error to occur. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that we have to consider when we're setting up our scene, and this is regardless of whether we're talking about live action or we're talking about 3D space, virtual space within a video game. All of this applies in exactly the same way, right? You're still going to maintain your 180-degree rule, and you still want to maintain your continuity throughout your scenes. So there's a lot of things you need to take a look at within the scene that you're creating. First of all, if you've established a direction that your actors are moving, then maintain that direction for as long as you need to. If they actively are changing directions, that's fine. If they're actively turning around, going back the way they came, that's perfectly fine. Show that on screen. Show the fact that they've been to where they're going, and now they're turning around to go back the other way. But even further than that, we have to look at things in our scene like the direction cars are parked, or the sides of the building that we're seeing, or even the direction of the shadows within our scene. As long as this is maintained throughout and we haven't switched directions, then again, it's not going to cause a continuity error as far as look or facing is concerned. All right? Maintain the direction throughout the entirety of your scene. When we start talking about the idea of dialogue and delivering dialogue, again, we can have a large error here. And again, we did talk about this a little bit in the 180-degree rule video. Let's say we've got two actors and they are talking, and we have John on the right-hand side of the screen facing left, and Mary is on the left-hand side of the screen and she is facing right. We want to maintain that throughout the entirety of our sequence, all right? We want to maintain the facing of each of these people throughout the entirety of our sequence. Even if we've cut in and we only have one actor on the screen, we still want to make sure that we have that continuity of direction, that continuity of facing. So in this particular example, we can see that Mary is facing to the right. She's on the left-hand side of the screen. I've set this up, as far as composition is concerned, I've set this up with a lot of room to move in front of Mary, which is awesome. In the next shot, I move over to John, and John is on the right-hand side. He is obviously facing Mary. They're obviously looking at each other and they're delivering dialogue. As long as I've maintained this facing, I assume that these characters are speaking together. But if suddenly Mary is on the other side, and this can occur if we've broken our 180-degree rule, we've flipped over onto the other side of our line of action, and now Mary appears to be on the other side of the screen. Suddenly we question, why is Mary over there? Who's she looking at? No, John's on the other side of her. Did she turn around? Is she talking to someone else now? All these things are going to be what we question when we start to see this. And again, we don't want people to question our production, right? We don't want them to look at the production. We want them just immersed within our game. Same thing is true of movement. If I show you this scene, the character's walking from right to left in the first shot and then left to right in the second shot, we assume that this character is going back and forth. Maybe there's some kind of switchback here. She's moving up the hill still, obviously, but there's some kind of switchback, but she's turned around and gone in the opposite direction. And again, this can be avoided if we maintain our 180-degree rule. It can be if your actor doesn't actually physically switch directions and they're still walking in the same direction. As long as we maintain our 180-degree rule, then we're going to have this continuity of movement. Okay, but this is going to cause confusion. This back and forth is going to cause confusion. We assume that the character is now turned around and they're walking in a different direction. So there are a number of rules that we're going to want to consider if we're talking about continuity of movement. And it's actually more difficult to maintain continuity of movement if you've got some kind of erratic movement within your scene, right? If a character is not walking in a perfectly straight line throughout the entirety of your scene, then we're going to have certain things change up, right? As the character moves about, things are going to change up. If they're walking along and they're suddenly going down a different street and it's a one-way street, well, maybe the cars are pointed in their opposite direction. Or if they go around a corner, for example, then suddenly the shadows caused by the sun are in a different direction. And all of this can cause continuity error if we haven't cut properly. So there's a number of different things we're going to want to do here. Before I get into what I've got listed here, there's a couple things you want to consider doing. If you're going to change direction, then that's perfectly fine. Obviously, people don't walk in a straight line forever to where they're going. They turn corners, etc. If you're going to have a character turn a corner, or you're going to have a character go around a corner, don't start off with them walking from left to right and then cut immediately to another shot of them walking from left to right, where suddenly the shadows or the cars are parked in different directions. This is going to cause that continuity of movement error, that directionality error that we're talking about here. Instead, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that there's a shot of your character actually turning a corner, right? If they're walking along the street and then they turn the corner on camera, well, then we accept the fact that they've gone around the corner, and if things are slightly different, well, that's perfectly fine. We've established that in the next shot that this is the direction they're traveling now. We understand they've turned a corner. We understand they've gone in a different direction. They're still going to be moving from left to right. We still want to maintain that directionality all the time. If they are moving towards a particular destination, we're going to want to maintain that directionality throughout the entirety of our film, but we're going to want to show the fact if they're actually turning we're going to want to show the fact they're actually turning on screen. All right, so don't cut to two shots where they're just different. That's going to cause a jump cut. Now, there's a couple of rules for continuity of movement that we're going to discuss here as well, and these are about convention, continuity of convention as well. And we're going to talk about continuity of convention in just a moment. But these rules for continuity of movement have to do with convention and what we accept as far as the visual aspects of a film. If two characters start in different places, so they're in entirely different locations, but they are moving in the same screen direction, they are bound for the same destination. If characters start in different locations and move in opposite directions, they are bound for different destinations. Now, this is a convention. Now, we can obviously break this convention if we don't show kind of an overhead map and we show, here's character A's house and here's character B's house, and they're meeting somewhere in the middle. Well, obviously, once we have that information, then we're going to understand, regardless of which way they're traveling, that they are traveling to the same location, if we've explicitly said that in a shot previously. But as far as convention is concerned, if characters start in different places but move in the same direction, same screen direction, then we assume they're bound for the same destination. And if characters start in different locations but they move in opposite directions, then we assume they're bound for different locations, as far as convention is concerned. The second set of conventions, if characters start in the same recognizable locations and move in the same direction, one is chasing the other or they are racing. So when I say chasing, it could mean following. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're, chasing and trying to catch someone. It just means that they're following along in the same footsteps, right? If we see the same recognizable locations in two different shots and the characters are traveling in the same direction and we see those recognizable locations, then we assume those people are following each other. Unless and again, we're going to talk about continuity editing later on. We can actually use this to fool people, absolutely, but by showing it at different times and showing it out of sequence, etc. But if we see something recognizable, if we see, let's say, a building in the background and character A walks across in front of that building from left to right in the first shot, in the second shot, character B, we see the background, again, that building in the background, and they're walking from left to right, we assume those characters are going in the same direction. They're following each other, all right? The second convention is if characters start in the same recognizable location and move in opposite directions, opposite screen directions, then we assume they are moving away from each other. So again, if we see building A, or they could be crossing each other depending on what we see, what's recognizable in the scene. But they are moving in opposite directions, okay? So if character A is moving from left to right and we see the building in the background and character B is moving from right to left and we see the same building in the background, then we assume that they're either going to meet each other or they're moving away from each other depending on where they are established within the scene itself. Okay, so screen direction will tell us what's happening within the scene as far as convention is concerned. Now again, we've talked a lot about the idea of film. Can we have this issue as far as action, direction, look, movement, position, that kind of thing? Can we have that same kind of error within video games? And how does it affect the player? Well, the answer is absolutely. We can still have the same errors that occur within video games. Sometimes they can be used to our advantage and sometimes they can be used to our disadvantage. So, for example, one of the biggest issues that we have is moving between scenes. Let's say that you've got one scene where your character comes in from the left-hand side and they're at the top of the screen, and then the camera switches to a different location and we see the character in a different location. We have to take a moment, and as they move into this new scene or as they move into this new area, we might have to take a moment and try and figure out where our characters are. If that location changes too much, it might take us a little while and it's going to cause disorientation as far as our player is concerned. They're going to be looking for their avatar somewhere on the screen, and if they can't find that avatar right away, they're going to be a little bit confused, right? It takes them a moment to find their character and then start playing as well. So again, that can cause some issues. So if you're doing something across a cut, and whether that means we're changing scenes within the game, or we're changing levels or whatever, you want to try and maintain screen position. You want to try and maintain your character in the relatively same position on the screen, or at least give your audience, your player, time to figure out exactly where they are. If you don't give them that time, they're going to be confused. They're going to be searching desperately for their character to start the game, right? And again, every time that they're searching and not playing your game, this is going to cause an effect on their immersion, a loss of immersion. They're going to be looking at the production of your game, and you don't want that. Don't look at the production of the game. Play the game, right? Same thing is true with the changing of a character's movement in screen direction. Now, let's say you had an infinite runner and your character is infinitely running to the right. They're always running towards the right, and you're jumping, and etc. And then there's a change as far as the scene is concerned. Maybe they get to the end goal and bam, they get to that location. Great. And then they start the next scene, the next part of this infinite runner, and the character is now moving from right to left instead. Well, again, this is going to cause a little bit of confusion. Now, like I said, this absolutely could work in our advantage. I created a game for my daughters during COVID here. I've created a bunch of games trying to get them to have something to do during this time of isolation. I've created a bunch of games. One of the games that I created was called Run Run, and Run Run was a 2-player game in which one of the characters, it was an infinite runner, in which a character could grab a special pickup, and that special pickup caused the entirety of the scene to be inverted and the characters to be running in the opposite direction. And the entire point of that particular game was the fact that one of the 2 players who was ready for the change could have an effect on the player who wasn't ready for the change, right? And again, it takes you a minute to kind of figure out the controls, figure out where you are on the screen. That was the entire point of that particular game. So I was actually using the idea of continuity errors to create fun within my game. Fun! I put in that, and that's air quotes, fun, right? And that was the entire point of this game, that there was a risk reward there. You grab this special pickup, you get a bunch of extra points, but in doing so, you cause discomfort for the other players who are playing along with you. And it's a common score. So it's not that each individual has your score. You're trying to get the highest score you can, both players working together towards this high score goal. So that was the entire point of it, right? And I knew that in building the game, this would cause disorientation. It would cause the players to take a moment to have to try and find their character on the screen now, and the timing's going to change because they're going the opposite direction. And maybe just when you got it, every time you picked up one of these special pickups, it would flip the screen. In both cases, the platform were procedurally generated and the rewards are procedurally generated. So it wasn't that, each person had the same rewards at the same time. You could discuss it and skip it. Both people had different rewards and both people had different platforms. So grabbing this thing would cause a complete disorientation. And again, that was the entire point of it. Anyway, guys, so does that lead to the point that all of your characters have to always be moving in the exact same direction? Well, obviously, I just gave an example where they didn't, right? Where I intentionally had my characters flip screen direction. But again, they don't always have to. So the question is, and through the entirety of your film or the entirety of the sequence, do they always have to be moving in exactly the same direction, or was this going to cause continuity errors if they switch direction? And the answer again is no. You can change direction. We talked about this a little bit already. If you want to change direction, you absolutely can. You have to utilize things like a neutral shot between the reverse shots. So if you've got a long shot of a character moving from right to left, and then you cut into a wide shot and the character's walking towards the camera, and then into a long shot again where the character's moving from left to right, we assume that the character is now still going in the same direction because we had this kind of cutaway shot that we utilized to reverse the directions of our shot. That's perfectly fine. So you absolutely can do that. There are other situations as well where you might actually want to change up the movement. So is continuity of movement something that has to always be in place? Is continuity of movement something that is always necessary? Well, again, the answer is no, depending on what you're trying to do. And I gave you a very clear example of when continuity of movement wasn't what I wanted to maintain, right, within our games. But again, if you've got yourself some kind of montage or something like that, and you've got this chaotic movement in your scene, it's going to maybe indicate that someone is visiting different locations or they're traveling to different locations. If they're always traveling in different directions, then people are going to assume in watching this montage that it is a longer period of time that they're actually going to different places. So absolutely, continuity of movement does not have to be maintained. But if you are going to add in these continuity errors, make sure you understand why you're doing it and understand the effect that it's going to have on your viewer. So this is going to lead to a question, and this question is going to then lead us to the idea of convention as well. So we're talking about directionality here and convention. If I don't know why I wrote character there. If a person is flying from Toronto, Canada to London, England, in which screen direction would the plane appear to fly? If a person was flying from Toronto to Hong Kong, which direction would the plane appear to fly? And the answer to this is based in convention. So if a character is flying from Toronto to London, then the plane would appear to fly from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side of the screen. And if the plane was flying from Toronto to Hong Kong, the plane would appear to fly from the right-hand side of the screen to the left-hand side of the screen. Now, why? Why is that the case? Well, that's because of a map. If we take a look at a map, and we consider Toronto to be the center of the map, the center of the universe. I live in the center of the universe. If we consider Toronto to be in the center of the map, then London, England lies to the east of Toronto, right? We're going to have to travel east in order to get to London, England. We have to travel from the west to the east. So we're going to have to travel from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side of the screen if we're looking at a map. The same thing is true if we're flying to Hong Kong. Hong Kong is in the west of Toronto. It's to the west of Toronto. We're flying from the east to the west, and therefore we're traveling from the right-hand side of the screen to the left-hand side of the screen. All right, and that's what's gonna set it up for us. That's convention. That's the convention of maps, or the idea of maps, and how we associate particular directions with maps, as an example. Now, that's just one convention. There are a lot of different conventions, and conventions may change based on the genre of film or game you're playing. It will change based on where you're from. It will change, based on where these games are even created. So if you have a team of people that are creating this across the world, there may be different conventions across the world, right? And understanding these conventions are going to be extremely important. You have to consider who your audience is and who you're marketing into, and you're going to want to maintain the appropriate conventions for your particular market. Otherwise, it can confuse people. So let's take a look at an example of convention that's going to change based on geography. Let's take a look at this right now. The convention for the interior of vehicles. If you've got a shot that's in the interior of a vehicle, when shooting a scene in the interior of a car, all shots from the driver's point of view face left. That means that the driver is looking at the passenger, and the passenger is on the right-hand side of the screen, and they are facing towards the left-hand side of the screen. And we have, based on our idea of good composition, we have room to move in front of hopefully, we have room to move in front of our passenger, and it's going to be open on the left-hand side of the screen. So the passenger will appear on the right-hand side of the screen, and they'll be looking towards the left. If, however, you are the passenger and you are looking at the driver, that view will be from the right-hand side. So the driver will be on the left-hand side of the screen, and they'll be looking towards the right. And having this convention set up means that the driver and the passengers are looking at each other at all times, right? We talked about that idea that we want to set up this line of action. And regardless of the direction of travel, regardless of which direction you are traveling from, that will always be the case. We won't change it at all. Now, that is based on a North American standard, right? Our drivers sit on the left-hand side of a vehicle. The steering wheel's on the left-hand side of the vehicle. The car drives on the right-hand side of the road, and so on, right? If we're somewhere else where everything is reversed, so the steering wheel's on the right-hand side and you're driving on the left-hand side, you very well will have everything swap. You may have, I don't know what the convention is. I don't know what the convention is in those places because I'm not from there and I've never actually made a film that was about those locations. But the conventions might very well change. And if they do, and they probably will because everything else is reversed, if they do, then you're going to have to know that when you're actually building your game or you're actually building your film or you're creating your cutscene. If you don't take into account the appropriate conventions for whatever location or genre or whatever it is you're creating, then we're going to have a problem as far as your viewers are concerned. They're going to be confused about who's sitting where or what's happening, right? That's going to be the case no matter what. All right, guys, that's all we're going to talk about as far as continuity of conventions concerned. There's so much that we could talk about as far as conventions concerned, and it's going to change based on every genre of game, based on the area of the world that the game's being created in, based on the creators themselves, where they're from. There might be different conventions that they understand. Okay, so that's all we'll talk about as far as convention. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that you should understand the conventions for whatever it is you're creating and then apply those to whatever it is you're actually creating. All right, guys? I hope you enjoyed that. It's kind of fun. If you're ever watching a film, try and keep your eye open for these continuity errors that occur within different films or videos or television shows or even games. Keep your eye open for it. If you know something, put it down in the comments. I'd love to see some examples that you've got from your different gameplay and that kind of thing. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, let me know down below with a thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down is perfectly fine. I get them all the time. That's no problem. All right, guys. I love hearing from you, though. So send me a little comment. Tell me what you think. All right. I'd love to hear what your ideas are as far as this teaching method is concerned. Anyway, thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below. And if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.